The knock on the door of Quincy Sterling's penthouse came at exactly 7 in the morning, interrupting his third cup of coffee, and the financial reports spread across his marble kitchen island. He had not ordered anything, was not expecting anyone, and his doorman typically called before sending someone up. Curious and slightly annoyed, he walked to the door in his pressed slacks and white button-down shirt, already dressed for a day of meetings despite the early hour. When he opened the door, a woman stood there with a clipboard and a bright yellow vest over jeans and a flannel shirt. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and she had paint smudges on her cheek. She looked up from her clipboard, and their eyes met. For a moment, neither of them spoke. "Quincy Sterling?" she asked, her voice catching slightly. He stared at her, his mind racing backward through years of memories, until it landed on a skinny girl with scraped knees and a gap-toothed smile, holding a baseball bat in a weedy lot behind their elementary school. Rose Vance. Her face broke into a genuine smile that made something in his chest tighten. "Oh my God, I thought it might be you when I saw the name on the work order, but Sterling is not exactly uncommon. I cannot believe this." Quincy found himself smiling back, genuinely smiling for the first time in weeks. "What are you doing here?" "I'm with Morrison Construction. We're doing the exterior restoration on this building. I'm the project manager, and I have to get access to some of the balconies to assess the stonework damage." She gestured to her vest and clipboard as if suddenly remembering why she was standing there. "I had no idea you lived here. Well, I did not know you lived in the city at all. Last I heard, you were off at boarding school." "That was a long time ago," he said, stepping back. "Come in." "Please, do you want coffee? This is surreal." Rose hesitated at the threshold, glancing at her watch. "I should not. I have a crew waiting downstairs, and we need to start before the temperature gets too high. The mortar sets differently in heat." "5 minutes," Quincy said. "It has been, 17 years. Give me 5 minutes, and then you can look at whatever you need to look at." She bit her lip, considering, then nodded and stepped inside. Her work boots were clean, but she still wiped them carefully on the mat. Quincy watched her take in his apartment with curious eyes. The floor-to-ceiling windows, the minimalist furniture, the expensive art on the walls. He tried to see it through her perspective and wondered what she thought. "This place is incredible," she said softly. "The light alone must be worth millions." Something like that. He poured her a cup of coffee from the French press, remembering absurdly that she used to drink hot chocolate with extra marshmallows when they were kids. "Cream? Sugar? Black is fine," she said, accepting the cup with both hands. "So boarding school. That was sudden. One day you were there, and the next day you were just gone. Your mom said you were going to some fancy school out east." Quincy leaned against the counter, cradling his own cup. The memory still stung after all these years. "My father decided I needed proper education and proper connections. He shipped me off to Phillips Academy when I was 12. I came back for a few holidays at first, but then he sold the house in the old neighborhood, and there was no reason to come back." "No reason?" Rose's eyebrows rose. "You had friends. You had me." "I was 12, he said quietly. "I did not have much say in the matter, and my father made it clear that my old life was not part of the plan. New school, new friends, new everything." Rose studied him over the rim of her coffee cup, and he felt exposed under that gaze. She had always been able to read him too easily, even when they were children. "Did you like it? The fancy school and all that?" "I hated it," he admitted, surprising himself with the honesty. "For the first 2 years, anyway. Then I stopped hating it and just got used to it, made some friends, did well in classes, went to Princeton, then Harvard for business school, built a career. The usual path. The usual path for people who live in penthouses, maybe." Rose said with a small smile. What do you do? Wait, let me guess. Finance. Close. I run an investment firm, Sterling Capital Management. We handle portfolios for high net worth individuals and institutional investors. He saw her expression shift slightly, becoming more guarded, and he rushed to add, but that is incredibly boring. What about you, construction project manager? That is amazing. Is it? She set down her coffee cup. It is just a job. Rose, come on. You were always good at building things. Remember that treehouse we tried to make in your backyard? Her smile returned, warmer this time. We nearly killed ourselves falling out of that oak tree. My mom banned us from using any tools more dangerous than safety scissors for a month. But you kept drawing plans, Quincy said, the memory suddenly vivid. You filled entire notebooks with designs for houses and bridges. You wanted to be an architect. A shadow crossed her face. Life does not always go according to plan. I went to community college for a couple of years, got a degree in construction management, and worked my way up. It is good, honest work, and I love it. Most days. He wanted to ask what had happened to the architecture dreams, but sensed that pushing would close her off. Instead, he said, I would love to hear more about it. Can I take you to dinner? Catch up properly? Rose glanced at her watch again and winced. I really do need to get to work. My crew is going to think I got lost. She pulled out her phone. Give me your number. We can figure out a time. They exchanged numbers, and Quincy led her to the balcony. She became all business once they were outside, examining the stonework with a professional eye, taking photos with her phone, making notes on her clipboard. He watched her work, noticing the competence in every movement, the way she ran her fingers over cracks in the stone and frowned at the corrosion on the railings. This is worse than I thought, she muttered. Some of these supports are seriously compromised. We are going to need to replace at least 40% of the balustrade, maybe more. Is it dangerous? Quincy asked, suddenly concerned. Not immediately, but it could be in another year or two. Good thing the building management called us when they did. She made another note. I will need to come back with my structural engineer, probably tomorrow or the day after. You know where to find me, he said. She looked up at him, and something in her expression made his breath catch. It was not the guarded look from earlier or the professional focus. It was something softer, more uncertain. It really is good to see you, Quincy. I thought about you sometimes over the years, wondered how you turned out. I thought about you too, he said honestly, more than you might think. Rose ducked her head, a slight flush coloring her cheeks, then seemed to shake herself. Okay, I really do have to go now. Text me your schedule and we will find a time for dinner. After she left, Quincy stood in his empty apartment, his coffee gone cold, his financial reports forgotten. The space felt different somehow, too quiet, too sterile. He picked up his phone and looked at her number, saved simply as Rose Vance. He could still see her 7-year-old self, fierce and fearless, always ready for adventure. And now she was back in his life, covered in paint and wearing work boots, and he felt something he had not felt in years. He felt curious about his own future. The week that followed was a strange dance of schedules and brief encounters. Rose came back twice more to assess the building, always professional, always in her work vest and boots. Each time, Quincy invited her in for coffee, and each time they talked a little longer. He learned that she had stayed in the city her whole life, that she had a small apartment in Brooklyn, that she had a cat named Widget. She learned that he worked too much, that he went running every morning at 6, that he could not cook to save his life despite his enormous kitchen. You have a professional-grade gas range and do not know how to use it, she asked on her third visit, staring at his gleaming appliances with something like horror. I know how to order takeout very efficiently, Quincy said defensively. That is tragic. Rose shook her head. Absolutely tragic. I suppose you are an amazing cook. My mom taught me everything she knew. I can make a decent lasagna, and my chicken soup could cure anything. She said it matter-of-factly, without bragging, and Quincy felt a pang of something that might have been envy or might have been longing. That evening, after another long day of meetings and phone calls, Quincy finally texted her. Dinner this Saturday. I know a place. Her response came 20 minutes later. If it is somewhere fancy where I need to wear heels, I am out. My feet hurt too much at the end of the week for that nonsense. He found himself grinning at his phone. I know just the place. Trust me. Saturday evening, Quincy picked her up from her apartment building in Brooklyn. When she came downstairs, he barely recognized her. She wore jeans still, but they were dark and fit her well, paired with a soft green sweater that brought out the color of her eyes. Her hair was down, falling in waves around her shoulders. She had minimal makeup on, just enough to highlight her features. You look beautiful, he said before he could stop himself. Rose ducked her head, that same flush from before coloring her cheeks. Thanks. You clean up pretty nice yourself. He had agonized over what to wear, finally settling on dark jeans and a blazer over a simple shirt. Casual but not too casual. Now, seeing her smile, he was glad he had not overdone it. The restaurant was a small Italian place in the West Village, family-owned and completely unpretentious. Quincy had discovered it years ago when he first moved back to the city, one of the few places where he felt like a person instead of a portfolio size. This is perfect, Rose said as they were seated at a corner table with checkered tablecloths and candles in wine bottles. How did you find it? Blind luck and desperation, Quincy admitted. I was starving after a terrible day at work, and I just walked until I found something that looked good. Been coming back ever since. They ordered wine and pasta, and then the conversation flowed like no time had passed at all. Rose told him about her work, about the satisfaction of seeing a building transformed, about the challenges of managing crews of tough construction workers who initially had not taken her seriously. I had to prove myself every single day for the first 2 years, she said, twirling spaghetti around her fork. But now they respect me. I know my stuff, and they know I know my stuff. You were always determined, Quincy said. Remember when Tommy Richardson said girls could not play baseball? You made him eat those words. I struck him out 3 times in one game, Rose said with satisfaction. He never said another word about it. You were terrifying. I was not terrifying. I was persistent, terrifyingly persistent. She threw a wadded-up napkin at him and he caught it, laughing. The sound surprised him. When had he last laughed like this, unguarded and genuine? As the evening wore on, the conversation turned more serious. Rose asked about his parents, and Quincy felt his jaw tighten. My father passed away 3 years ago, heart attack, very sudden. My mother remarried and moved to Arizona. We talk once a month, maybe. I am sorry, Rose said softly. About your father, I mean, even if things were complicated. They were always complicated with him. Quincy took a sip of wine. He had very specific ideas about what my life should look like, who I should be. After a while, it was easier to just become that person than to fight him. And now I do not know who I am half the time, he admitted. I run a successful company. I make a lot of money. I have everything I am supposed to want. But some days I wake up and wonder if this is actually my life or just the life my father designed for me. Rose reached across the table and touched his hand, just briefly. That is heavy stuff, Quincy. Sorry, that got dark fast. Do not apologize, I asked. She paused, seeming to gather her thoughts. Can I tell you something? When you went to boarding school, I was devastated. You were my best friend. The only person who really got me. And then you were just gone, and I felt like I had been erased from your life. Guilt twisted in his stomach. Rose, I am so sorry. I wanted to keep in touch, but my father discouraged it. He said I needed to focus on my new life, my new opportunities. And I was just a kid. I did not know how to fight him on it. I know. I understand now, I mean, but back then it really hurt. She met his eyes. I just wanted you to know that, not to make you feel bad, just so you understand why I was a little guarded when I showed up at your door. I understand completely, Quincy said. And for what it is worth, not staying in touch is one of my biggest regrets. You mattered to me. You still matter to me. The air between them shifted, became charged with something neither of them seemed ready to name. Rose broke the moment by signaling for the waiter. We should get dessert. Tiramisu. We can share. They shared the tiramisu, their spoons occasionally bumping, and talked about lighter things. Favorite movies, books they had read, places they wanted to travel. Quincy walked her back to her apartment building, and they stood on the sidewalk in the cool night air, neither quite ready to say goodbye. I had a really good time, Rose said. We should do this again. How about next week? Quincy asked. Or sooner. We could do sooner. She laughed. Let me check my schedule and text you. On impulse, he hugged her. She stiffened for just a moment, then relaxed and hugged him back. She smelled like vanilla and something citrusy, and Quincy closed his eyes, memorizing the feeling. Good night, Rose. Good night, Quincy. Over the next few weeks, they fell into a pattern. Dinners twice a week, sometimes 3 times. A Saturday spent walking through Central Park, eating hot dogs from a cart and feeding ducks at the pond. A Sunday afternoon at the Met, where Rose knew surprising amounts about Renaissance architecture, and Quincy pretended to understand modern art. They texted throughout the day, sharing photos and random thoughts, rebuilding the easy communication they had once had as children. Quincy found himself thinking about her constantly. During meetings, he would wonder what she was doing. Was she on a job site, yelling at suppliers, solving problems? At night, alone in his enormous apartment, he would replay their conversations, the sound of her laugh, the way her nose crinkled when she was thinking hard about something. He was falling for her, and it terrified him. The realization hit him fully one evening when he was having drinks with his friend Marcus, a fellow board member at one of the charities Quincy supported. They were at a rooftop bar in Midtown, surrounded by Manhattan's elite, and Quincy could not have cared less about any of them. You are distracted, Marcus observed. More than usual. What is going on? Nothing, Quincy said automatically. That is the least convincing nothing I have ever heard. Marcus studied him. It is a woman, is it not? Who is she? Quincy considered deflecting, but found he wanted to talk about her. Her name is Rose. She is a construction project manager. We were best friends when we were kids, and we reconnected a few weeks ago. And you are into her? Massively, Quincy admitted. So what is the problem? Ask her out. Properly, I mean. What if it ruins the friendship? What if she does not feel the same way? The fears tumbled out. We just got each other back. I do not want to lose her again. Marcus shook his head. Man, you run a multi-million-dollar investment firm. You make decisions involving millions of dollars every day without blinking, but one woman has you tied up in knots. It is different. It is only different because it matters. Marcus leaned forward. Look, I do not know this, Rose, but here is what I do know. Life is short. Opportunities pass. If you feel something real, you owe it to yourself and to her to be honest about it. Quincy knew he was right. But knowing it and acting on it were 2 different things. The next week, Rose called him on Tuesday afternoon, her voice tight with stress. Hey, I know this is last minute, but can I come over? I need to vent, and I do not want to be alone in my apartment. Of course. I will order Thai food. She arrived an hour later, still in her work clothes, her hair escaping from its ponytail, looking exhausted. Quincy took one look at her and pulled her into a hug. She sagged against him, and he felt her take a shaky breath. "Bad day?" he asked. "The worst. We had a wall collapse at a site in Queens. No one was hurt, thank God, but it is going to set us back weeks. And it happened because the previous contractor cut corners, which I documented in my reports, but the building owner ignored it. Now he is trying to blame our company, and I have been on the phone with lawyers all afternoon." She pulled back and rubbed her face. "Sorry, I am a mess." "You are allowed to be a mess," Quincy said. "Come on, food will be here soon. We can watch something mindless on TV." They ended up on his couch with containers of pad thai and spring rolls, watching a nature documentary about penguins. Rose kicked off her boots and curled up against his side, and Quincy put his arm around her without thinking. It felt natural, right? "Thank you," she said quietly during a segment about penguin mating rituals, "for letting me come over and fall apart a little." "Anytime," he said, meaning it. "That is what friends are for." She tilted her head to look up at him, and something flickered in her eyes. "Is that what we are, friends?" Quincy's heart started pounding. "What do you want us to be?" "I do not know," she whispered. "This is complicated. We have history. And you are you, and I am me, and our lives are so different. I do not care about that. You should care. You live in a penthouse, Quincy. You wear suits that cost more than my monthly rent. You have clients who are probably movie stars and CEOs. I show up to work in boots and a hard hat." "And you are the most interesting person I have ever met," Quincy said. "None of that other stuff matters. The money, the penthouse, none of it means anything compared to how I feel when I am with you." Rose sat up, turning to face him fully. "How do you feel when you are with me?" "Like I am actually alive," he said, the words coming from somewhere deep and honest. "Like I am not just going through the motions of a life someone else planned for me. Like I am me again, the person I was before everything got complicated." "Quincy," she breathed, and then she was kissing him. The kiss was soft at first, tentative, questioning. Then Quincy cupped her face in his hands and kissed her back, and it deepened into something that made his head spin. She tasted like Thai basil and possibility. Her hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer, and he went willingly, wrapping his arms around her. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Rose laughed shakily. "That was not how I expected this evening to go." "Regrets?" Quincy asked, his heart in his throat. "Not even a little." She touched his face, her fingers gentle. "But we should talk about this. Really talk." They stayed up until 2 in the morning, talking through everything. Rose admitted she had been attracted to him since that first morning when she knocked on his door, but had been afraid to risk their renewed friendship. Quincy confessed that he had not been able to stop thinking about her, that she had become the best part of his days. They talked about their fears, about the differences in their lifestyles, about whether this could actually work. "I do not want to change you," Quincy said. "I do not want you to feel like you have to fit into my world. That world is superficial and exhausting most of the time." "And I do not want you to feel like you have to slum it with me," Rose countered. "Slum it? Rose, being with you is the best thing that has happened to me in years, maybe ever." She smiled, that beautiful, unguarded smile that made his chest ache. "Okay, so we try this. We date. We figure it out as we go." "We figure it out as we go," Quincy agreed and kissed her again. Dating Rose was nothing like any relationship Quincy had ever had before. She refused to let him pay for everything, insisting they split costs or take turns. She dragged him to hole-in-the-wall restaurants in neighborhoods he had never explored, to street fairs and farmers' markets, to a roller skating rink in Brooklyn, where they both fell more times than they could count and laughed until their sides hurt. In return, He introduced her to his world, but carefully, watching her reactions. He took her to the symphony, delighted when she closed her eyes during the violin concerto and swayed slightly with the music. They had dinner at one of Manhattan's finest restaurants, where Rose ordered the most expensive thing on the menu with a mischievous glint in her eye and declared it good but not better than her local pizza place. "You are impossible," Quincy said, amused. "I am honest," she corrected. That pasta was great, but it was not $48 great. His colleagues noticed the change in him. He smiled more, left the office on time occasionally, seemed less driven by the constant need to prove himself. His assistant, Patricia, commented on it one afternoon as he was heading out for a lunch date with Rose. "You seem happy, Mr. Sterling," she said. "It is nice to see." "I am happy," he realized. "Thank you, Patricia." Rose met his friends at a charity gala in September. Quincy had been nervous about it, knowing how judgmental his social circle could be, but Rose had insisted. "I am part of your life now," she said firmly. "That means meeting the people in your life." She wore a simple black dress that she had owned for years, she told him, with her hair in an elegant updo. She looked stunning, and Quincy could not stop staring at her. At the gala, she held her own, charming Marcus and his wife, discussing urban planning with a city council member, even making Quincy's stuffiest board member laugh with a story about a mishap involving a cement mixer and a confused delivery driver. "She is wonderful," Marcus said when Rose excused herself to the restroom. "Do not screw this up." "I am going to try very hard not to," Quincy said. In October, Quincy met Rose's mother, Carol Vance, at her small house in Queens. He was more nervous about this than he had been about any business presentation in his life. Carol Vance had been kind to him as a child, always having snacks ready when he and Rose came in from playing, but that was a long time ago. Carol answered the door and looked him up and down, her expression unreadable. Then she smiled and pulled him into a hug. "Quincy Sterling, look at you, all grown up and handsome. Get in here." The house smelled like roast chicken and apple pie, and Quincy felt something in him ease. They sat at a small dining table crowded with food, and Carol grilled him mercilessly about his intentions toward her daughter while Rose protested and blushed. "Mom, please, we are adults. You do not need to interrogate him." "I absolutely do," Carol said. "This is my baby girl. I want to make sure he is good enough for her." "No one is good enough for her," Quincy said honestly, "but I am going to spend every day trying to be." Carol studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "Good answer." She turned to Rose. "I like him. You can keep him." After dinner, Carol pulled Quincy aside while Rose was loading the dishwasher. "She cried for weeks after you left, you know, when you went to that boarding school. She did not understand why her best friend disappeared." Guilt twisted in Quincy's gut. "I know. I am so sorry for that." "I am not telling you to make you feel bad," Carol said gently. "I am telling you so you understand how much you mean to her. You always meant something to her. So if you are going to be in her life now, be in it completely. Do not disappear again." "I will not," Quincy promised. "I swear." November brought challenges. Rose's company faced financial difficulties, and she worked longer hours, came home exhausted, spent her evenings stressed about budgets and contracts. Quincy wanted to help, offered to invest, to introduce her to people who could provide capital. She refused firmly. "This is my career, Quincy. I need to figure it out myself. I am just trying to help, I know, but I need to do this on my own." She softened, taking his hands. "I love that you want to help, but this is important to me, building something myself, not having it handed to me." They argued about it, their first real fight. Quincy said things about stubborn pride, and Rose said things about not understanding what it was like to work without a safety net. They spent 3 days barely talking, and Quincy was miserable every second of it. Finally, he showed up at her apartment with flowers and an apology. "You were right. I was trying to fix things instead of just supporting you. I am sorry." Rose accepted the apology and the flowers. "I am sorry, too. I was defensive when you were just trying to help. We need to communicate better." "Agreed." He kissed her forehead. "Are we okay?" "We are okay." Rose's company stabilized by mid-November, landing a major contract for a historic renovation project that would keep them busy for the next 2 years. She celebrated by taking Quincy to her favorite dive bar in Brooklyn, where they played pool badly and drank cheap beer and laughed like kids. "I am proud of you," Quincy said, wrapping his arms around her from behind as she lined up a shot. "You know that, right? I am so proud of you." She sank the shot, then turned in his arms. "I know, and I am proud of you too. Did you think I did not notice you turned down that hedge fund deal because it would have meant investing in companies with questionable labor practices? How did you know about that?" "I pay attention," she said, kissing him. "You are a good man, Quincy Sterling." Thanksgiving, Quincy invited Rose and Carol to his penthouse. He had hired a chef to prepare the meal, not trusting his own cooking skills, but he set the table himself, carefully arranging flowers and candles. The space that had always felt too big, too empty, suddenly felt warm and full with Rose and her mother there. After dinner, Carol fell asleep on the couch during a movie, and Rose and Quincy stood on the balcony, looking out at the city lights. It was cold and Rose shivered. Quincy wrapped his arms around her, sharing his warmth. "I love you," he said. The words had been building in him for weeks, maybe months, maybe since that first morning when she knocked on his door. "I am in love with you, Rose." She turned in his arms, her eyes shining. "I love you too." "I think I have loved you since we were kids, actually. I just did not know what it was back then. We were 7. I was a precocious 7-year-old. She kissed him, soft and sweet. "I love you, Quincy, completely." They stood there for a long time, holding each other. The city spread out below them, and Quincy thought about how far he had come from the lonely boy shipped off to boarding school. How lost he had been for so long, and how found he felt now. December came with snow and the holiday season. Quincy had always found this time of year exhausting, full of obligatory parties and forced cheer. But with Rose, everything was different. They went ice skating at Rockefeller Center, saw the Christmas windows on Fifth Avenue, drank hot chocolate with excessive amounts of whipped cream. She bought him a scarf she knitted herself, slightly lopsided but warm and made with love. He bought her a necklace, a simple silver pendant shaped like a compass. "So you always find your way home," he said as he fastened it around her neck. "You are my home," she said, touching the pendant. "You and this thing we are building together." On Christmas Eve, they exchanged gifts at his apartment, and then Rose surprised him with an envelope. Inside was a set of keys. "What are these?" he asked, confused. "Keys to my apartment," she said, nervous now. "I know we have only been officially together for a few months, but I want you to have them. I want you to feel like you have a place in my space, in my life. Completely." Quincy looked at the keys, then at her, and felt his throat tighten with emotion. "Move in with me," he said suddenly. "Not here necessarily. We can find a place together, somewhere that is ours, not mine or yours. Somewhere we both choose." Rose's eyes widened. "Are you serious?" "Completely serious. I love you. I want to wake up next to you every morning. I want to build a life with you, a real life, not just dates and sleepovers." He took her hands. "What do you say?" "I say yes," she said, laughing and crying at the same time. "Yes, absolutely yes." They spent January looking at apartments, a project that revealed a lot about both of them. Quincy gravitated toward new construction with modern amenities. Rose wanted character and history, exposed brick and old wood floors. They compromised on a loft in Tribeca, spacious but not excessive, with big windows and a partially renovated interior that Rose could work on herself. "This is perfect," she said, walking through the empty space, her footsteps echoing. "I can see us here." "I can too," Quincy said, imagining furniture, imagining Rose curled up with a book in the sunlight, imagining mornings and evenings and everything in between. They moved in together in February. Rose brought her mismatched furniture and colorful art, her plants and her cat. Quincy brought his essential belongings and left most of the expensive, impersonal items behind. The loft became a blend of both of them, comfortable and lived in and real. Living together brought new rhythms and small adjustments. Rose was a morning person who woke with energy and made too much noise. Quincy needed silence and coffee before he could function. She left construction plans scattered on every surface. He was compulsively neat. But they worked through it with humor and patience, learning each other's rhythms, creating their own patterns. One Sunday morning in March, Quincy woke to find Rose already up, sitting at their dining table with her laptop, working on a project proposal. Sunlight streamed through the windows, making her hair glow. Widget, her orange cat, was sprawled across her lap. She was wearing one of Quincy's old Princeton shirts and pajama pants, completely focused on her work, and Quincy felt his heart overflow with love for her. This was his life now. This was real. In April, Quincy made a decision he had been considering for months. He restructured his company, bringing in a partner to handle day-to-day operations, and reduced his own hours significantly. His board was shocked, his colleagues concerned, but Quincy was certain. "I have spent 20 years building wealth," he told Marcus over drinks. "Maybe it is time I build a life instead." "Because of Rose, because of me," Quincy said. "But yes, Rose helped me see it. She helped me see that there is more to living than working and accumulating. I want to travel. I want to spend time with the person I love. I want to figure out what I actually enjoy doing." With more time, Quincy discovered he liked cooking. Rose taught him, patient and encouraging, and soon he could make decent pasta and a respectable roast chicken. They cooked together in their kitchen, laughing when things went wrong, celebrating when things went right. He started running longer routes in the mornings, exploring the city instead of just exercising. He read books that had nothing to do with finance. He began sitting on the board of a nonprofit that built affordable housing, using his skills and connections for something that mattered. Rose saw the change in him and loved him more for it. "You seem lighter," she said one evening as they walked home from dinner, their hands intertwined. "More at peace." "I am at peace," he said. "For the first time in my adult life, I am at peace." In June, they took a vacation to Italy. 2 weeks of wandering through Rome and Florence, eating incredible food, seeing art and architecture that left Rose speechless. Quincy watched her sketch in her notebook, capturing details of buildings and bridges, and thought about how her childhood dreams had never really died, just transformed. On their last night, at a small restaurant in a side street in Rome, Quincy reached across the table and took her hand. "I have something to ask you." Rose looked at him, her eyes questioning. "I love you," he said. "I love the life we are building together. I love who I am when I am with you. I love everything about us." He pulled out a small box from his pocket and opened it, revealing a simple diamond ring. "Rose Vance, will you marry me?" Rose stared at the ring, then at him, tears streaming down her face. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, absolutely yes." He slipped the ring onto her finger and she launched herself at him, kissing him with such enthusiasm that they nearly knocked over the table. The other diners applauded, and the restaurant owner brought them champagne on the house. "I cannot believe you proposed in Italy," Rose said, laughing through her tears. That is so romantic it is almost cliché. I will propose again somewhere less romantic if you want, Quincy offered. Do not you dare. This was perfect. They were married in September, a small ceremony in Central Park with close friends and family. Carol cried through the entire thing. Marcus served as Quincy's best man and gave a speech about never seeing Quincy this happy. Rose's college friend Jamie was her maid of honor and told embarrassing stories from their 20s. Rose wore a simple cream dress and flowers in her hair. Quincy wore a suit but no tie, casual for him, and he could not stop smiling. When they said their vows, Rose's voice shook with emotion. "You were my best friend when we were 7 years old," she said. "You were my first friend, really. And now you are my last friend, my only love, my partner in everything. I promise to build a life with you, to support your dreams, to laugh with you and cry with you and figure everything out together. I love you, Quincy." Quincy's own vows were simple and honest. "I spent so many years lost, living a life I thought I was supposed to live. You helped me find myself again. You showed me what actually matters. I promise to love you, to choose you every day, to build a life with you that makes us both happy. You are my home, Rose. You always have been." They honeymooned in Greece, island hopping and swimming in crystal clear water and eating their weight in fresh seafood. They talked about the future, about what they wanted, about dreams they had not dared to voice before. "I want kids," Rose admitted one night as they sat on a balcony overlooking the Aegean. "Someday. Not right now, but someday." "How many?" Quincy asked, pulling her closer. "2 or 3. Enough that they have siblings, that they have what we had. Someone to climb trees with and build forts with and share secrets with." "That sounds perfect," Quincy said. "And I want to teach them things. I want to be present, not like my father was. I want to actually know my kids." "You will be an amazing father," Rose said with certainty. Back in New York, they settled into married life with surprising ease. They hosted dinners for friends, spent weekends exploring new neighborhoods, argued good-naturedly about everything from furniture placement to what to watch on TV. Carol became a regular visitor, arriving with containers of food and opinions about their decorating choices. Widget ruled their home with an iron paw and grudgingly accepted Quincy's presence. In December, Rose found out she was pregnant. She took 3 tests to be sure, then called Quincy at work, her voice shaking. "Can you come home? I need you to come home right now." Quincy left his office immediately, his mind racing with worst-case scenarios. When he burst through the door of their loft, Rose was sitting on the couch, crying. "What is wrong?" he asked, rushing to her. "Are you okay? Are you hurt?" She held up the pregnancy test, unable to speak. Quincy stared at it, his brain processing the 2 pink lines, and then he was crying too, pulling her into his arms, laughing and crying at the same time. "We are having a baby. We are having a baby," she confirmed. They told Carol on Christmas Day. She cried and hugged them both and immediately started planning, talking about baby names and nursery colors and all the things she would teach her grandchild. Rose and Quincy exchanged amused glances over her head, happy to let her excitement wash over them. The pregnancy was relatively easy, and Quincy was involved in every step. He went to every doctor's appointment, read books about parenting, helped Rose paint the nursery a soft yellow. They found out they were having a girl, and Rose immediately started sketching designs for a custom crib. "You are not building our daughter's crib yourself," Quincy said, looking at the complicated plans. "Why not? I am a construction professional." "Because you will be 8 months pregnant, and I will have a heart attack watching you use power tools." They compromised. Rose designed the crib, and Quincy hired a carpenter to build it to her specifications. Their daughter was born in August, a hot day when the air conditioning struggled to keep up. The labor was long and exhausting, and Quincy held Rose's hand through all of it, marveling at her strength, falling more in love with her with every moment. When the doctor finally placed their daughter in Rose's arms, Quincy thought his heart might burst. She was tiny and perfect, with a tuft of dark hair and Rose's nose. Rose looked up at him with tears streaming down her face, and Quincy kissed her forehead, overwhelmed with gratitude. "What should we name her?" Rose asked softly. They had debated names for months but had not been able to agree. Now, looking at their daughter, Quincy knew. "Clara," he said. "Clara Sterling." "Clara," Rose repeated, testing it out. "I love it, Clara, my sweet girl." Being parents transformed them both. Quincy had never known he could function on so little sleep or love something so completely. He learned to change diapers, to warm bottles, to soothe a crying baby at 3 in the morning. Rose was a natural, calm and confident, but Quincy saw the exhaustion in her eyes and tried to take on as much as he could. Carol was a constant presence, helping with everything, giving them breaks when they needed it. Marcus and his wife brought meals. Rose's friend Jamie organized a meal train with their friends. They were surrounded by support and love, and it made all the difference. On Clara's first birthday, they had a party at their loft. It was crowded with people, adults talking and laughing, Clara delighted by all the attention. Quincy found Rose in the kitchen, taking a moment to breathe, and wrapped his arms around her from behind. "This is a good life," he said quietly. Rose leaned back against him. "The best life. Remember when you knocked on my door 2 years ago, with your clipboard and your work vest? I remember thinking you looked exactly the same but completely different." She turned in his arms. "I never expected that morning would change everything. I never expected my childhood best friend would become my wife," Quincy said, echoing his thoughts from so long ago. "But I am so grateful she did." Rose kissed him, soft and lingering. "Me too." Over the next few years, their life continued to evolve. Rose went back to work part-time, then full-time, and Quincy adjusted his schedule to be home more. They tag-teamed parenting, supporting each other, figuring it out as they went. Clara grew into a curious, energetic toddler who loved building blocks and climbing everything, a perfect combination of both of them. When Clara was 3, Rose found out she was pregnant again. This time it was twins, boys, and Quincy thought he might pass out from shock and joy. They moved to a larger space, a townhouse in Brooklyn with a small backyard where the kids could play. Rose renovated it herself with Quincy's help, teaching him how to tile and paint properly, laughing when he made mistakes. The twins, Owen and Noah, were born in December, and suddenly their house was chaos. 3 kids under 4 was exhausting and beautiful and impossible and perfect. Quincy's hair started to gray at his temples, and Rose joked that the twins were responsible. "Completely worth it," Quincy said, holding both babies while Clara climbed on his back. "Every single gray hair is worth it." As the years passed, Quincy watched his children grow and marveled at the life he had built. Clara, serious and focused, loved drawing and building like her mother. Owen was gentle and thoughtful, always reading. Noah was wild and fearless, constantly covered in scrapes and bruises from his adventures. They filled the house with noise and laughter and life. Rose continued to grow her career, eventually starting her own construction company that specialized in historic renovations and sustainable building. Quincy supported her completely, watching with pride as she built something meaningful and lasting. He stayed involved with the affordable housing nonprofit, using his wealth to fund projects that made a real difference. They still had date nights, still made time for each other despite the chaos of parenting. They took family trips to the beach, to the mountains, anywhere the kids wanted to go. They hosted Thanksgiving every year, their home full of friends and family and love. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Quincy took Rose back to Central Park, to the spot where they had gotten married. It was September again, the leaves just starting to turn, the air crisp and perfect. 10 years, Rose said, holding his hand. Can you believe it? Best 10 years of my life, Quincy said honestly. Thank you for knocking on my door that morning. Thank you for letting me in, Rose said, in every way. They stood there, surrounded by the city they both loved, and Quincy thought about the scared 12-year-old boy shipped off to boarding school, the lost adult who had everything except what mattered. He thought about Rose, the fierce 7-year-old with scraped knees, the confident woman who had taught him what love really meant. I love you, he said, pulling her close, for everything you are and everything we have built together. I love you too, Rose said, resting her head on his chest. Always. Their life was not perfect. They still argued about little things, still struggled with the balance of work and family, still had days when everything felt overwhelming. But they had each other, and they had built something real and lasting, something that mattered. Clara started kindergarten and announced she wanted to be an architect. Owen declared he would write books. Noah said he wanted to be a superhero or maybe a firefighter. Quincy and Rose listened to their dreams and encouraged everyone, determined to give their children the freedom to become whoever they wanted to be. One Saturday morning, Quincy was making pancakes while Rose corralled the kids at the breakfast table. Clara was explaining her latest building design to her brothers, using sugar packets and napkins as demonstration materials. Owen was listening intently, asking questions. Noah was trying to build a tower out of cereal boxes and ignoring everyone. Rose caught Quincy's eye across the kitchen and smiled, that same smile that had made his chest ache the first morning she appeared at his door. He smiled back, and in that moment, surrounded by the beautiful chaos of their life, he felt complete. He had found his way home after being lost for so long, and home was not a place or a building. Home was Rose, was their children, was this life they had created together. Home was love and laughter and the choice to keep showing up for each other every day. Quincy flipped a pancake, listened to his daughter explain architectural principles to her brothers, watched his wife laugh at their antics, and thought about how one knock on the door had changed everything. How reconnecting with his childhood best friend had led him here, to this perfect, imperfect, absolutely right life. He had never expected that Rose Vance would become his future wife. But now he could not imagine any other future, any other life, any other love. She was his past, his present, his future, his everything. And as Clara called out that she wanted chocolate chips in her pancakes and Noah knocked over his cereal tower and Owen quietly asked for more juice, Quincy Sterling knew with absolute certainty that he was exactly where he was meant to be. This was his life, this was his love, this was home,